guys. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thanks for coming in from such a beautiful day, beautiful weekend and week weather-wise here in New England, here in Boston. It's spectacular, and we could be outside, but there's something that draws us into this place and to come together and to not just hear what our friends are going to say tonight, but to just experience them and have our spirits connect on some of the deeper levels. So just so grateful for all of you coming and for all those who are joining with us via the live stream. I know folks are watching throughout the country. So I'm going to give a 22-minute introduction here because I didn't say Mass last weekend, so I got to make up. Greg G said to me, no, don't do that. Don't. So, 21. Here we go. Father Greg Boyle, the founder of Homeboy Industries. We all know that that's the largest gang intervention, rehab, and reentry program in the world. Also a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom given to him by President Biden back in 2024, and the Laetare Medal from the University of Notre Dame, the oldest honor given to American Catholics. I'm sure he's loving hearing all this for the gazillionth time in his life here. We all know G as an acclaimed author, pastor, speaker, and source of hope, inspiration, perspective, and all these things for us. So I first met Greg back in 2012. I was doing a wedding for one of my kids out in Danvers, and he had moved out to California to work for just a couple years, and met the love of his life, Josh and Shannon out there. And I said, I'm in LA. I got to find this guy and go over to this place. And I got a Toyota Corolla from the rental place. And the guy said, you want an upgrade? I said, oh my God, thank you. That's so nice of you and everything. Well, when the guy says you want the upgrade, I thought that's such a nice gesture. And then I see the bill, it's like $700 more, and I didn't know. So I turned around to the kid and I was like, buddy, I thought you were being nice, give me an upgrade. And I'm going out to this Mustang, And I never, ever, 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 ever pull the priest card. But I was like, in my business, I try not to lie to people or pull the wool over their eyes. I'm like, I feel duped. I don't want the car. And the kid felt so bad and so guilty that he let me keep the convertible Mustang. So, of course, I pull into Homeboy, with this Mustang, and I was like, this ain't Kansas anymore here. There's a whole different scene going on, huh? And it was loaded with people and comings and goings, and all of a sudden I ended up, you're not going to remember any of this, but I ended up in your office, and you were so generous in your time, and I was just so excited, and before you know it, that facilitated Greg coming out here. He was speaking at BC, and then came to St. Cecilia back in the day. And here, 13 years later, we're together, and it's just such a great gift. Last spring in April, the Champions of Love got together. I don't know if you remember that wonderful weekend after Easter. Reverend John Finley and Reverend Liz Walker, Bob Goff, and Dr. Jim O'Connell, who I know is here tonight, Richard Rohr, Becca Stevens, Brian Stevenson, Dr. Kidford. They all came together, Stefan Brenda with you guys, and that was such a beautiful gathering that week. And then, you gave the homily for that Mass, and I'm telling you, at least I am, but people are still talking about the impact of that homily. You brought us that day a connection, I think, between heaven and earth, between pain and healing, rupture and repair, rejection and cherished belonging. In your homily, we were laughing one minute and crying the next. We were speaking, and then we were silent. You brought together nobody and anybody, them and us. We are still recalling it, feeling it, and talking about it. You are a gifted human being. You're infused with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the good spirit that St. Ignatius talks about, not the bad spirit. It's a spirit that we're given at baptism, but you know what? When you got ordained, brother, I think it was further imbued and you became saturated with it, and you've continued to be the conduit for that spirit. You're a conduit, a beacon, a light, and what I would call a true moral voice in these very divided times. You speak the gospel because I think you live it. You inspire us, and you inspire me to think differently, to see others differently. We're all wounded. We're all unwell on some level. And even with that, you call us to love, to forgive, and to understand, not to judge, condemn, separate, or throw away. I mean, you even help us to not mistake human beings, as broken as they may be, as interruptions. Do you remember that? I mistook her for an interruption. You speak of kinship so authentically because you live it, teach it, and inspire it. You, my friend, and I know we're in church, are the RFD. Truly. You're a true champion of the gospel. I love you. I'm so grateful that you're here. And I'm so grateful to welcome Rafa Chavez and Spencer Perry Edwards from Homeboy. So glad that you guys are here in Boston for the first time. And so it is now my pleasure to introduce and welcome to Boston and St. Cecilia, Rafa, Spencer, and Father Greg Boyle. Thank you. Thank you, Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rafael Chavez. I've been gone for the last 30-something years. I've been in prison. As a kid, I started out running with gangs. I got involved in gangs real early. And at 15 years old, well, maybe younger, I got involved in drugs. As I got older, at 15, I got involved in heroin. And I became a heroin addict at 15 years old. I kept using for many years, in and out of jail, juvenile hall, coming back out. Finally, when as an early teen, as an adult, I kept coming out of prison. And then I finally, when I was almost off parole, I picked up a murder for behind drugs and money. And so I was facing 25 to life. At the time, it was 25 to life. But when the 3-strike law came in effect, everything was doubled up. So I was facing 2 lives with 56 years. So at that time, I didn't really have no hope, thinking I was ever going to get out. I just pretty much was giving up when I was inside the county jail fighting my murder case. And I kept using drugs while I was in there, bringing in drugs. So my life was like whatever, I just had a one-track mind, and this is it. I made my bed. This is what it is. And I kept on for many years. So when I kept going to court, for some reason, I have to say God, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And the life sentences came off. And I ended up taking 15 years flat. So I did my time. I spent a lot of years in solitary confinement. I spent over 12 years in solitary confinement when I was in prison because I was still involved in drugs and gangs inside the prison. I came home finally, but at the same time, I was clean from drugs. I had quit using heroin. At that time, I was only 6 years clean at the time. But I still had that criminal mentality. And so I thought I was being slick, as everybody would say. I started selling drugs. And that didn't last long because the whole coming out here to the streets after being gone so many years, you have a whole different, everything has changed. People in itself, the drugs and everything has changed. And so I didn't last long out there in the streets. I didn't even last less than, I wasn't even out there a year, put it that way. So I get arrested for drugs again, for drugs this time. It was nonviolent crime. And, but this time I'm facing 50 to life because it was a third strike. Because of my past, they wanted to make an example out of me. He goes, you just got out from doing 15 years. What's from stopping you from doing the same thing? Because they go hand in hand. And it was for the same thing as last time. And I couldn't argue with them. I couldn't argue with them. But my mentality, the way I've been in prison in the system, I grew up in the system all my life. My mentality goes, I was telling my family, well, let me go to the jury, let me lose it. Let me get the 25 to life. It's a nonviolent crime. They're going to change these laws. Because a lot of people were getting struck out for pizza, slices of pizza, a pair of Levi's for, stealing. And but the law has not changed yet, But in my mentality, I already knew they were going to change because I just came home and I knew what the laws, what they were fighting and the laws in there. So I'm kind of glad I didn't take it because my sister told me because they offered me 18 years and 4 months. My sister told me don't take the life, just go, just take the 18 years. I go, well, it's better said than done. I go, I'm the one that has to do it, I'm the one that has to do the time. I go, so I ended up taking the 18 years, 4 months. But again, my criminal mentality, I kept doing the same thing in prison, bringing in drugs. Wasn't using drugs, but I was selling drugs in prison. So I was still committing crimes in prison as well. And finally, you get to a point where you're tired already, My kids are older already. I have 2 kids. You get to that point where you're already tired and, tired of being tired. And I was like, I see friends doing good. I see friends that passed away. And I had to reflect on myself, especially when I was in solitary confinement, you reflect on your life. And so I'm in a level, in prison, I'm in a level 4. So in there, you have, you're constantly in the cell. So you're doing 22 hours in the cell. You go out maybe for an hour or 2 out, to the rec, to the yard for a little while. And so, but I had time to reflect. And during that time, my brother passed away on this last term right here. And then about a month apart, my dad passed away as well. So I had my father and my brother that passed away a month from each other. So I had two family members that I was grieving for, and it's like, man, that made me think a lot more and more. But it's kind of sad that I had to go that far. I had to lose family to even think that way, and to make me humble myself even more. And one day out of nowhere, I just get called into my counselor's office. And he calls me and goes, hey, you have a release change. I didn't think nothing of it. Usually I get papers under my door, you got 30 days back or you got 60 days back, whatever. I didn't pay no mind to it. So I just listened to him. I go, so he told me that my release date was changing. I go, do you want to know how much? I go, 30 days? I'm just asking him. And he finally told me, goes, you're getting out this year. I go, wow. I got scared, to be honest. And here I am on my 17th year. I'm already on my 17th year. So I call my sister. I'm telling my sister that I'm coming home. I'm scared. I go out because they're unknown coming out. I don't want to come out here and mess up again. So, it's my mom's 90th birthday at the time. I told her, well, they're going to set back the birthday so you can come home and see my mom. I said, fine. So I get home. I get to see my mother for her 90th birthday. It was a blessing. She was happy. She hasn't seen me in 17 years. I finally, decided, okay, I got to do something with my life, because even before I came home, there's got to be something better than this where I've been living, because I've been living in these cells for so long. I know I'm institutionalized. And so one day, I heard about Father G, and but I never met him, even though I've been in juvenile halls, been in prisons. I just never met the man. I just heard of him. And so I've been to his place, but not the big one that they built, this last one. I've been to the one on First Street. It's one of the oldest ones. So I went over there to get tattoo removal. So when I got out this time, I called, and I'm calling First Street, and they said, "Oh no, you got the main offices over there on Alameda." So I end up calling Father G. So I figure it's early. I get up at 5 in the morning. I get up early, and I said to myself, "Well, these priests got to get up early. I know they're not sleeping in, you know. I know they're not sleeping in." So I call him, and by luck, by the grace of God, I should say, he answered, and and I tell him the story. I talked to him. He goes, "Meet me on this day," and sure enough, on his word, I seen him there, and finally, I started doing the 18-month program, and as time went on, everybody saw that I wanted that change in my life. And so people kept pushing me to be a navigator as well. And that's what I became. I became a navigator at Homeboy Industries. But I owe it all to him, to Father G, and everything. And he's been a blessing ever since I've come home. I've been blessed with my grandkids and my kids since I've been home. I got my own apartment, first apartment. I got my own car, my own bank account, and I just been spreading the blessings to give back at Homeboys. I want to thank you all for everything and for letting me talk today. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Spencer. I'm from out of Spencer, Perry, it's on. Can y'all hear me? I grew up in Compton, a city within Los Angeles. My whole family is part of the gang. I didn't have a chance at all. I moved over there in 1995 after I got taken away from my mom and dad. I opened the door. They told me not to. They took us away. Instead of putting us in the system, they had let my auntie come get us instead. My first time going to jail, I was 11 years old, driving without owner's consent. My auntie was supposed to take me to the store. She said she wasn't going to, so I took the car. And I got caught. 2 weeks later, I did it again with my cousin. And the police pulled up on the side of us. They he's like, "Hey, the police is right there." I said, "Act like it's ours, don't do nothing." So in my head, I'm thinking the police is right here, light turned green. Oh, okay. The light turns green, my bad, I'm sorry. The light turns green, I got the police right here. I'm thinking once the light turns green, I'm only like 11 at this time. Turn another corner, I'm gonna get away. It didn't go like that. It hit a fire hydrant, the police laughed at me. And I went back to jail. I did 3 months, and then I got out. I went back again when I was 14 years old for a home invasion, attempted murder. I was on the run for almost a year. I got caught up and went back to the halls. I went to Sylmar. This is when I first found out about Homeboys Industry. At first, I was in a thing called the Scare Straight program. Didn't work for me. Nobody yelling at you, trying to tell you to wash your drawers. No, it's not gonna work. I heard about it, but I did get a chance to actually go up there and see what it was about because I was locked up. I got out, and then I ended up catching the case when I turned 18 years old. I went to jail for home invasion, attempted murder, gang enhancement, evading the police, and discharging a firearm. They gave me 18 years, 8 months to life in prison. I went to Pelican Bay. I got my case overturned in 2011 because the arresting officer and judge was brothers and sisters. I got out last year, September. I got parole this year, this month exactly, on the 30th. It's still low? Closer? Right here? Oh. So y'all couldn't hear me the whole time? So can I say it all over then? Because they couldn't hear me. Okay. So when I got out, I had other jobs I was working at. Well, fast back forward, before I got out, I was in a hole. Father Greg had came back to the prison. This was when they had passed the law, SB 261. So for anybody that was under the age of 18 when they caught their crime, they didn't understand mentally what they had did. So I remember talking to Father G, and he was saying, he's like, "Oh, when you get out, come down here and get a job." I'm like, okay. I didn't do that. I did get out. I went to go work with my brother. He had his own cleaning business. That didn't work too well for me. My auntie kept telling me. And one day she just popped up at my house and said, "Look, you got two options. Either come down to Homeboys willingly, or I'm gonna call Father G and we're gonna pull up to the house and bring you down there ourselves. I said, I'll just come on my own, don't worry about it. I'm coming. I didn't know what to expect because I'm closed in. I've been through so much. I've been shot by my own cousin trying to set me up in a robbery. I've been shot by my own homies. I've been jumped. So me talking to people or trusting people is very hard. So when I got to Homeboys, it was like, I don't want to do this. It's crazy because the very first person I met at Homeboys was Rafa. When I walked in there, he asked me my name, he asked me why I'm coming here, and I told him, man, in my head, I'm like, man, I got forced to come here, really. That's how I'm looking. My auntie didn't give me a choice. But when I came down there, it was actually a blessing because everybody in there has been through my same situation. Everybody understands what I've been through. I didn't get judged when I walked through the door. It wasn't looking at me different. The first thing I noticed when I came in there, it's a dude that works there. His name is Mario. One of the best dudes ever. When you walk in, he shakes your hands. Hello, welcome to Homeboys. One thing that I can't say Homeboys does have that they say it's not, they say two things. There's no place like Homeboys, and nobody forces you to come in there. When you come to Homeboys, you come to get it for yourself, to change yourself. When I first came there, I didn't know that. I was fresh out of prison, just got done doing 17 years, 6 months, still trying to figure myself out. I'm still trying to figure myself out. Can y'all hear me? Is it close enough? So when I got there, yeah, it was an eye-awakening. I talked to Father G. He seen me. He said, oh, you're out, huh? And I said, yes, I am. He said, stand right here for a minute. So I stood there not knowing what to expect. This man gave me $300. I said, no, I don't want that. He said, no, take that. I said, no, I don't want that. He said, no, take it. I said, I don't want it. So he said, man, just stand right there for a minute. I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm thinking, he's like, okay, just, you can have it. I mean, you don't need it. It's okay. Nah. Rafa came and talked to me. He said, why are you turning down your blessings? I said, I don't want to look like I'm just coming here for. He's like, you're not coming for it. He's offering that to you. He does it for all of us. I came back. That's when I did the program. Now I'm waiting for my shirts. Every time I walk past his office, Father G wants to talk to you. What did I do wrong? So I'll go in there, I'll put my head down. I'm like, yes. He's like, pick your head up, son. What you looking down for? I'm like, huh? He's like, what's wrong? Nothing. I feel like I'm in trouble. You're not in trouble? I said, well, I'm in here. Where's your shirts at? I haven't started yet. You haven't started yet? Well, huh? Now go get your shirts. Next week I see you should have your shirts on. I came to Homeboys lost. I didn't know what to expect. What I got from Homeboys is a family. I got brothers. I got my own brothers and sisters, but I have brothers and sisters that understand my situation. Brothers and sisters that when I'm going through something, they know it. They're not just gonna leave me in the dark. They're gonna pull me to the side, let me know that everything's gonna be good. I have a father that I can actually say is a father. My mama passed away while I was in prison. I didn't meet my mom, so I got robbed of that. My dad, he's still out there, but we don't talk because he said I'm not his firstborn son. So that's why we don't talk. They say your father is somebody that's only blood, your family is blood. That's not true. I got a whole family behind me. We're not related at all. I got a father and I don't even know this man. Kinship, I got hope, love, I got family, I got understanding. I got a direction that my mom and my grandmother wished I'd been had when I was younger. And I figured it out. It's not too late. And I finally figured it out. And I wish they was here right now to see it. And I appreciate y'all letting me come right here to tell my story and let y'all know my experience and what I got from Homeboy Industry as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. And thank you, John. Love you, John. Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for welcoming Spencer and Rafa here. This morning we were at the Newton Country Day School, and then we spoke to the social work folks at Boston College. So they're good company. Spencer never got on a plane in his life until yesterday, so so yeah, he was brave. And so the day won't ever come when I have more courage, or I am more noble, or I'm closer to God than these two gentlemen and the thousands of folks who walk through our doors at Homeboy. I love this place. I love you, John. I love your hospitality, and so I'm happy to be here. I really enjoyed that spring day here in April, and the homies who were with me then. So I've spoken here before, so I always feel like, people have heard me before, so that always gets me going a little bit. And once I spoke at a foster grandparent gathering in Orange County and one summer, and a huge gathering. And then the next summer they said, could you come back and speak to us? I go, well, gosh, I just spoke to you last summer. But anyway, I guess if you want me to. So, after the second summer talk, the second time I spoke to this same group, a foster grandmother came up to me and she grabbed both my hands and she had tears in her eyes, so I think she liked the talk. And she said, I heard you last year. It never gets better. So, kind of hoping she misspoke there, though I'm not entirely sure. So John mentions correctly, we're in these times, divided times, and people are always saying, what do we do, and how do we resist, and how do we, call out harm without demonizing anybody? It's a challenge, and the gospel presents that challenge to us. I always think of what Martin Luther King says about church. It's not the place you've come to, it is the place you go from. And having lived in this town many years ago, this parish community is really a place that always chooses to go from. Otherwise, we're not connected to the marrow of the gospel if we don't go from this place into the world. And imagine a circle of compassion, and then imagine nobody standing outside that circle. We want to go from this place and dismantle the barriers that exclude. We don't want to just stay in this church. We want to be, fortified to leave it. And to somehow shorten the darkness in which we find ourselves in at the current moment. And it's a challenge. But part of the antidote, of course, is to be able to stand at the margins, because that's the only way they'll get erased. Especially at a time when people are being excluded, we go to the places where that's happening, and we stand there with the poor and the powerless and the voiceless. And we get to stand with those whose dignity has been denied and those whose burdens are more than they can bear. And we go to the margins because you're going to find the easily despised and the readily left out exactly there. And you get to stand with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop. And with the disposable so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away. And so we commit ourselves to create a community of kinship such that God might recognize it. And nurturing into being such a community is our best resistance to what we currently face. By presenting a notion of God's dream come true, a community of kinship, of cherished belonging, such that God might recognize it. And we brace ourselves as we go to the margins, because we know full well that as you leave this place to live the gospel, that people will accuse you of wasting your time there. But the prophet Jeremiah writes, "For in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing." And all of us will go from here. And that's our intention, that other voices might get heard. And that shortens the darkness. Well, of course, none of that makes any damn sense unless we're anchored in a notion of God that's really quite spacious. And that's important. That's why we begin in a church. Because I think we've allowed and have settled for a partial God when we want to hold out for this expansive God. Mirabai Starr, who's a friend of mine, and I recommend her books, she says, once you know the God of love, you fire all the other gods. Well, that's a good task. That's the thing that we're all invited to do. Because we project onto God the God who is created in our own image. Our friend Richard Rohr always says it's true that we're created in the image and likeness of God, but it's equally true that our image of God creates us. So you have to be careful about, well, what is that image? Anne Lamott says that you know you've created God in your own image when God hates the same people you do, so you want to keep that at bay as best you can. I remember years ago I was celebrating the Eucharist at San Fernando Juvenile Hall, and I sang Mass in all the detention facilities, and I was in a gym, and it was like 200 gang members there, and I was up on a little elevated thing, and I was wearing my alb and my stole, and there was the homies would get up to do the readings, and they had these sheets that had English and Spanish, so you could follow along in your language. And so I thought, well, I'm going to listen to the word proclaimed. I'm going to rest this sheet on my lap and just listen to the guy reading. So the first guy got up and did from the Hebrew Bible, and then the second guy got up to do the responsorial psalm. And I don't know, there was an overconfidence in his voice. And he gets up and he says, "The Lord is exhausted." And I looked at the sheet, I said, what the hell? And it was, "The Lord is exalted." And I remember thinking at the time, wow, that's way better. Because my sense of you always is that you all know what the exhausted God is. You know what exhaustion means. It means generativity. It means generous. It's not about me, it's about you. How can I help you? That's way better than the praise me, I'm amazing God. It's the generous God. Meister Eckhart, who was a theologian and a mystic, would say, it is a lie, any talk of God that doesn't comfort you. We only half believe that, but we should fully believe it. I have I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and we get on Zoom all the time. That was one of the great benefits of COVID, is we discovered Zoom. And so we had one recently on a Sunday, 4 o'clock, and we do this once a month now. And this was the anniversary of my mom's death. And she died in the first year of the first Trump administration. That's a marker, sorry. And so we were remembering her, and she died at 92 years old in her own bed, in her own home, surrounded by her kids and her grandchildren. And my father died like 30 years ago, and she was, sharp as a tack even till the end. In fact, in that last year of her life, she watched so much MSNBC. She was becoming Rachel Maddow. And she wasn't a lick afraid of dying. That was the thing that was so remarkable. And about a month before she died, she was just giddy and exhilarated. And she said, "I've never done this before," which is something you say just before skydiving. And in fact, the day before she died, I was sitting at the foot of her bed, and there was nobody else in the room, which absolutely never happened. And she was asleep. And she woke up and she saw me there, and she said, "Oh, for crying out loud." And she went back to sleep. Well, she was pissed off that she hadn't died yet, and sorry. And then the next day, as luck would have it, at exactly noon again, as weird as it was that nobody was around, I think my sisters went out to fetch lunch. At exactly noon, she opened her eyes and she lifted her head from the pillow and she let out this wondrous, glorious gasp. Skydiving. And then she left us. And no one in earshot of that sound could ever be afraid of death again. And I remember towards the end of her life, she'd be in and out of consciousness, but when she'd come in, and she was surrounded by all her kids and grandchildren, she would lock onto just one. And with a laser beam focus, she would say to that one with breathless delight, "You're here. You're here." And I think that is the only agenda of our exhausted God, is to look at you with breathless delight and say, "You're here, you're here." We think it's about a lot of other things, but I think it's only that. And I always think back to Jesus in the desert, and we have this notion again, 40 days and 40 nights, and a grumbling stomach, and doubts, and dark night of the soul, and it's all that kind of dark stuff. And whenever I say the word Lent, I always have to think of Michelle Nunez, who worked at Homeboy Industries, and because the 40 days and nights in the desert is our precursor of Lent. And she came into my office once and she said, "Well, it's official. I just found out my man's been cheating on me." And I said, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry to hear that." "Oh, I don't sweat it. I just went to church, got me them ashes, gave his ass up for Lent." That actually has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I'm like Pavlov's dog. If I say Lent, I have to tell you about Michelle Nunez. So anyway, so there's Jesus in the desert. And I suspect that it was mainly God telling his kid, "You're here." And that's all people need. At Homeboy Industries, 10,000 folks walk through our doors, like Rafa and Spencer. And they come barricaded behind a wall of shame and disgrace. And the only thing that can scale that wall is tenderness. They all walk through the door with what psychologists would call a disorganized attachment. Mom was either frightened or frightening. And you can't really calm yourself down if you've never been soothed. And so they show up there hoping it'll be a safe place. And then they're seen, and then they can be cherished. And people greet them at the door. And these two guys do this now. And their whole being seems to say, "You're here. You're here." choosing to be in the world who God is, compassionate and kind. Homies, especially folks like these two who have been locked up for a long time, will say, we're used to being watched, but we're not used to being seen. And so it works on you. It brings healing if you surrender to that. Rumi says, once you surrender to that beauty, then we shall become a mighty kindness. And that's what happens. We become a mighty kindness. And I don't know anything more appropriate or forceful or powerful as a form of resistance of people who cling to the marrow of the gospel than to become a mighty kindness. And it works on you, just as it works on a homie who wanders into our place. So 18 months is the centerpiece, and they work on themselves, and they be part of a community, black, brown. Everybody works with multiple enemies, with people they used to shoot at. And they have classes, and we have school, and then we have 14 social enterprises in Los Angeles where the homies will then go and work in a bakery, cafe, several restaurants. We just started dog grooming, which we call puppy fades. And we've opened one shop. We're about to open another one. So anyway, kind of that's what we do. And it's a place where the traumatized, if that's true as I believe it is, that the traumatized are likely to cause trauma, then it has to be equally true that the cherished will be able to find their way to the joy there is in cherishing themselves and others. But at Homeboy, we're allergic to the idea of holding the bar up and asking the homies to measure up. Instead, we hold the mirror up and we tell folks the truth. You are exactly what God had in mind when God made you. Then you watch folks who are broken and wounded start to become that truth, to inhabit that truth. And no bullet can pierce it. No 4 prison walls can keep that out. And death can't touch it because it's huge. But you have to reach in and you have to dismantle the messages of shame and disgrace that get in the way, that keep people from inhabiting that truth. Parentheses, I'm a Jesuit, like Pope Francis was, and I'm just saying. And then, and the homies don't know what a Jesuit is. So there are 3 of us there, Mark, Frank, and myself. But the homies don't know too much about that. And so I'm in my office, which is glass enclosed, and I can look out into the floor. Some of you have been there, where the whole reception area, every chair is filled. Everybody's waiting to get a tattoo removed or apply for our 18-month program or see one of our therapists or talk to our legal team or a whole slew of services. And I was in my office, and I had 2 homies in front of my desk, and I can see people walking past my window. And we have tours, like 8 tour groups a day from folks from all over the world. And so I'm there, and a group of like 20 people just park themselves in front of my office with a tour guide, a homie named Osvaldo. And it's one of those observe our founder in his natural habitat kinds of moments, and I wave faintly, and it's Osvaldo, and he has what the homies call a loud-ass voice. And he says, "This is Father Greg Boyle. He is the founder of Homeboy Industries. He is a jiu-jitsu priest." So from my desk, I do some of my more effective moves. So anyway, I told you that to tell you this, that on February 28th, 1540, St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, for the very first time in his spiritual diary or journal, enters for the first time this word. And he proceeds to use the word a lot for the remaining 12 years of his life. And before he dies, he goes back and he circles the word. Now, I know Spanish, but I wasn't familiar with this word. And the word is acatamiento, acatamiento. And it comes from an archaic word, acatar, which means to look at something with attention. And it gets translated as affectionate awe. And certainly it was born of a mystical singular moment between Ignatius and the God of love. But I suspect that what he wanted it to become was something expansive for everybody. In fact, a disposition, a stance at the margins, acatamiento, affectionate awe, which reminds me of the Acts of the Apostles when they say that one line, and awe came upon everyone. And it suggests that the measure of health in any community at all and in any country in the world may well reside in our ability to stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it. So many years ago, I was invited to speak to 600 social workers in Richmond, Virginia, and it was a gang in service. So in those days, because gang activity was really horrendous in 88 to 98, and so I was invited to speak, and I, it's where they have keynotes and breakout sessions and workshops, trying to help social workers understand, about despair. No hopeful kid has ever joined a gang in the history of the world. Or trauma, a wound. How do you help kids transform their pain so they don't have to transmit it anymore? And how do you deliver mental health services in a timely, culturally appropriate way? So I had said, I'd done these things many times, so I said, yes, I'll be there. Presuming I'd do a keynote, I bought my ticket. Well, a week before I was to fly, I pulled out the letter that had originally invited me, and to my horror, I discover that I am to be the only speaker all damn day, 9 to 5. And I thought to myself, as the homies would say, oh, hell no, I'm not going to be the only speaker. So I get to homies, Andre, an African-American gang member, and Jose, and I sat them down, and I said, look, you're flying with me to Richmond, Virginia. I'd like you to get up in front of 600 social workers and tell your stories. Take your time. Because we got a long-ass day to fill. Well, I'd never heard their stories, and Jose gets up first. And I suppose at the time he was like 25 years old. And he was in our 18-month program. He was like in his 9th month. Shot caller, gang member, was in prison, tattooed. At that juncture, you move around a lot at Homeboy. You work here, and then you work there. And he was working with the substance use disorder team, a man solid in his own recovery, and now he was helping younger homies with their addiction issues. So not only had he been gang member on the streets and prisoner and felon, but he also had a long stretch as a homeless man, even longer stretch as a heroin addict. So Jose gets up in front of 600 social workers and he says, I guess you could say that my mom and me, we didn't get along so good. I think I was 6 when she looked at me and she said, "Why don't you just kill yourself? You're such a burden to me." Well, 600 social workers audibly gasped. And then he says, "It sounds way worser in Spanish." And then they did what you just did. And then he continued, "I think I was 9 when my mom drove me down to the deepest part of Baja California, and she walks me up to an orphanage, and she knocks on the door, and the guy comes to the door, and she says, 'I found this kid.' And she left me there for 90 days until my grandmother could get out of her where she had dumped me, and my grandmother rescued me. My mom beat me every single day of my elementary school years with things you could imagine and a lot of things you couldn't. Every day my back was bloodied and scarred. In fact, I had to wear 3 t-shirts to school each day. First t-shirt because the blood would seep through, and second t-shirt you could still see it. Finally, the third t-shirt, you couldn't see any blood. Kids at school, they'd make fun of me. "Hey, fool, it's 100 degrees. Why are you wearing 3 t-shirts?" Then he stopped speaking, so overwhelmed with emotion, and he seemed to be staring at a piece of his story that only he could see. And when he could regain his speech, he said through his tears, "I wore 3 t-shirts well into my adult years because I was ashamed of my wounds. I didn't want anybody to see them. But now I welcome my wounds. I run my fingers over my scars. My wounds are my friends. After all, how can I help heal the wounded if I don't welcome my own wounds?" And awe came upon everyone. Acatamiento, affectionate awe. The measure of our compassion as you leave this place is not in our service of those on the margins, but only in our willingness to see ourselves in kinship with them. For the truth of the matter is this: if we don't welcome our own wounds, we may well be tempted to despise the wounded. And so we go from here in the hopes of choosing to be in the world who God is and taking seriously what Jesus took seriously: inclusion, nonviolence, unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance. I'm going to tell one last story and then invite these 2 gentlemen up here, and we will entertain whatever questions you may have, so get them ready. You know, it occurs to people sometimes to, especially jiu-jitsu institutions, to force their students to read my books against their will. And I'm not complaining, but my alma mater, Gonzaga University in Spokane, who ruins my bracket every March, forced the incoming freshmen to read Tattoos on the Heart. So they said, "Would you come, and could you bring 2 homies with you?" And there was going to be a big venue on a Tuesday night, 1,000 people. And I said, "Sure." And I normally pick homies who are from rival gangs just to force them to share a hotel room just to mess with them. And I always pick homies who have never flown before, just for the thrill of watching gang members panicked in the sky. So I've done this a lot lately too, because it's become my job at the moment is to fly around. So I always bring homies or homegirls. And so I'm used to nervous Nellies, but oh my God, never in 40 years have I ever had anybody more terrified of flying than Mario. It was really starting to freak me out. He was hyperventilating, which was something I had never witnessed before. He was like this, and we hadn't even, boarded the plane yet. And so we were at Burbank Airport, which is kind of smallish, but big Southwest Airlines planes, and they don't have that hermetically sealed chute to board the plane. You have to walk out onto the tarmac like you're the president, and they have the steps to go to the front of the plane. Big feature there are the steps that go to the back of the plane. So I'm sitting there with Mario, and the other guy I took was Larry, and he was walking around the airport. And so it's early morning, it's the first flight of the day, and I can see our flight crew has arrived. And it's barely getting light, and there are 2 female flight attendants, and both of them have very large cups of Starbucks coffee, and they're schlepping up the steps to board the plane. And Mario turns to me and he goes, "When are we going to board the plane?" I said, "As soon as they sober up the pilots." There they go now. Perhaps I shouldn't have actually said that. So I should tell you, and these guys can attest, that Mario is probably the most tattooed individual who's ever worked at Homeboy, and that says a lot. And he's all sleeved out to his fingertips with tattoos. His neck is blackened with the name of his gang, head shaved, covered in tattoos, forehead, cheeks, chin, eyelids that say "the end," so that apparently when he's lying in his coffin, there will be no doubt for anybody. And I thought, well, maybe I'll walk him through the airport, maybe that'll calm him down. And I'd never been in public with him. So people were like, "Oh my God," and mothers are clutching their kids a little more closely, and I'm going, wow, because if they would go to Homeboy tomorrow and walk up to any of our 800 people who work there and say, "Quick, who's the kindest, most gentle soul who works here?" They'd wait for a beat, and then they'd go, "Mario." Yeah, Mario. Mario is proof that only the soul that ventilates the world with tenderness has any chance of changing the world. He's proof that the only non-delusional response to everything is, in fact, kindness, a mighty kindness. So we get to Gonzaga, and the big talk Tuesday night. What they don't tell you is all day Tuesday, they'd like you to visit every class. I go, come on, just invite them to the talk. But anyway, we went, and I said, "You guys are going to get up just like these 2 did." And I sat in the back, and they told stories of terror and torture and violence. And stories of abuse and neglect. And honest to God, if their stories had been flames, you'd have to keep your distance, otherwise you'd get scorched. And I would not have survived a single day of either of their childhoods. So we get to the big talk, and it's packed, and it's standing room only, and so they got up just like these 2 did, and Mario was very nervous because it was 1,000 people. And they did a good job. And then I got up and did my thing. And then I had them stand on either side of me, as I will in 2 minutes, with these two characters. And so, yeah, questions. Yeah, and so a woman says, she stands, she goes, yeah, I got a question, it's for Mario. First question out the gate. And Mario is a tall, skinny drink of water, and he stands in front of the podium and clutches the microphone. He's just terrified. Yes? And she says, well, Mario, you say you're a father and you have a son and a daughter. They're about to enter their teenage years. What wisdom do you impart to them? You know, what advice do you give them? And Mario closes his eyes and he clutches the microphone with great intensity, and he's starting to tremble, and he's getting a friggin' hernia trying to come up with whatever the hell he's gonna say. And when suddenly he blurts out, as soon as he says those two words, he rushes back to his microphone clutching, close-eyed refuge. And now I know he's losing the battle with his tears. But he wants to get the whole sentence out. I just don't want my kids to turn out to be like me. And there's silence. Until the woman who asked the question stands, and now it's her turn to cry. Why wouldn't you want your kids to turn out to be like you? You are gentle, you are kind, you are loving, you are wise. I hope your kids turn out to be like you. And in an instant, 1,000 total perfect strangers all stand, and they will not stop clapping. And all Mario can do is hold his hands over his face, so overwhelmed that this room full of strangers had returned him to himself. But everybody standing, let there be no doubt, they were being returned to themselves. And I think that's the only praise our exhausted God has any interest in. Kinship, connection, relationships heal. Everyone is unshakably good, and we belong to each other. And so this is not the place you've come to, it's the place you will eventually go from, as you always are accustomed to do here at St. Cecilia's. And you go from here and you imagine a circle of compassion, and then you imagine nobody standing outside that circle. And you go from here to dismantle the barriers that exclude, so that together we can resist and shorten the darkness. And you go from here, and you don't care so much if anybody accuses you of wasting your time there. For in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing. Thank you very much. Where's your microphone? Why don't you come over here? Oh, there you go. Okay, So we won't take up too much of your time, and any hard question I'll throw to these guys. So just go like this, I'll go like that. Yes?
So I want to ask both guys, when you, it sounds like you don't travel a lot, but when you end up in a place that's very different from where you come, I guess, how do you feel? What do you get out of it? And how do you see the people you encounter? Because it's very different from where you come, I would suspect.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking for what joy do you get out of it?
Yes. Well, talk about your experience here today and how people, what have you experienced? Hold the microphone close.
This is my first time in Boston, and the people are amazing here, you know. What I got out of it, I love the architecture here, and I love the people here, and I don't know, it's been a blessing, just even talking and just trying to give back. I love it, you know, and I'm a true believer now. Before I never used to say those words, you know. I'm a believer now that giving back is a blessing. You know, and I never thought myself I would ever even be talking to anybody or even my own peers that grew up with the lifestyle that I lived. You know, I never thought that I could try to help them. You know, we always try to kill each other or whatever, you know, involved in something. But just helping someone that I've seen in prison or in the county jail or in juvenile hall I grew up with, it's just a blessing, just to help people out. Coming here and meeting new people, I love it. I do that at Homeboys too as well, because we have tours all the time coming through. So I meet so many people there, you know. So it's like, coming here and seeing some of the faces that come to Homeboys, I'll see them here as well, or other places, you know. So I love it, you know. When I go out and travel, I love seeing some of the same faces that I've seen at Homeboys. So it is a blessing just to meet new people.
What do you think, son? Microphone really close.
I did not like the turn getting on the plane. I didn't like that. Not at all. Nah, the shaking, nah. But I didn't know we landed, though. I liked it that. One thing I do like about Boston, out there on the West Coast, I'm friendly. So I was always taught, my whole family's from the South. So I was taught if you make eye contact with somebody, you say hello. Nobody does that down there. No. You say hello to them, it's like you're a turd in the wind. They just keep on pushing. I was on the phone with my sister yesterday, and I was telling her, I said, man, one thing I like, since I was in prison, I'll say hello to people. And most people will say hello back. But when you say hello to the police or anybody else in there, they won't say hello back, or they'll threaten you with a 115, which is a write-up, to hold you back in there and get more time. So when I got out, it's like people that I was in jail, they didn't get that hello. All you gotta do, when people forget to realize, it's the small stuff that matters. You can just tell that person, good morning. You just made their day. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, you just made their day. They can be going through something. So when I got out, I'd make that every day. Good morning, how you doing? Good morning. If you don't say nothing, it don't bother me. As long as I say something and you hear it, that's good enough for me. When I came out here, I said the first day, which is yesterday, I was walking down, I don't know what street this is over here, I was walking, and there was a black officer I seen. Oh man, how you doing? What's up? I said, what, you talking to me? Yeah, man, you're from my side of town. I said, I'm from your side of the town. I said, where are you from? He said, oh, I'm from San Diego. I said, I've never been to San Diego a day in my life. I'm from Compton. I'm from the West Coast. He said, it's all the same, man. You know, when I see black people, I'm gonna say hello. I said, oh, okay. The people out here is friendly. Y'all don't have no problem saying hello to people. If somebody need instructions, y'all not disrespectful and keep walking. Y'all gonna help people out. The buildings, the air is different. It smells fresh. You can taste the air. It's different. So I definitely like it out here. I don't even want to go back. But it's nice. The buildings.
They're going back. Let's get another question. Time for a couple more. Way back there, just to make you get your steps in today.
he's gonna run.
Oh, and the lobster roll is delicious here.
Hi there. I have a question around. I was talking with a Catholic worker friend recently, and they were talking about the tendencies of Catholic workers to have more focus on hospitality versus activism and protest. And I guess my question is, in our talk, in the discussion about these things that cause people harm and shame, I guess, where do you see addressing, I guess, some of the structural or systemic things that cause some of these harms, whether that be prisons or militarizing of communities and such like that when we talk about being divided in our present times, what does the structural piece of that look like?
Yeah, that's a common offering, It's like, so talk about the structural of the institutional piece. My issue sometimes is that human beings are always involved. So there's a tendency to, demonizing is the opposite of how God sees, period, all the time. There's not a moment where God says, except in this case, yeah, I'm going to demonize this, that, or the other thing. It just is not part of God's vocabulary. And demonizing is always the opposite of the truth. And part of the truth is that there isn't any institution or structure anywhere that exists without human beings. And because that's the truth, then we have to try to find another strategy other than just shaking our fists at an institution or at a structure. You can call out the harm, which is very important. Mass incarceration, you can call out the harm. But it's a difficult thing because then in 2 minutes, there's an us and a them. And that's always the opposite of who God is, always. We don't believe that fully because we still cling to there are good people and there are bad people. The minute we can abandon that, then I think we can roll up our sleeves and actually make progress in the world. But systems change when people change. And people change when they are cherished. And I believe that with all my heart. But what's frustrating is that's the long, steady journey, is creating a mighty kindness that will prevail. At the same place where I said Mass, where the kid talked about the Lord is exhausted, another kid got up on another day, and the reading was 1 Corinthians. It's the one you always hear at weddings. In fact, it's the reading you tune out at weddings. Because love is patient, love is blind, and then it's love is blah, blah, blah. That's what you're hearing. And you think, did I move the wash from the washer to the dryer? And did the Dodgers win last night? And then you wait until it gets to the end. And he stopped, and I knew there was a line left. But he stopped. And he looked out and he made eye contact with everyone there, gang members all. And then he read the last line. He really recited it. He said, "Love never fails." And he sat down, and every single human being in that gym believed him. And we've lost our confidence in the power of love. We think it's about just announcing and denouncing. But we've lost our confidence. We can regain it with the truth of that line, that love, in fact, never fails. I was on a podcast the other day, and the guy said, you know, my audience is going to think you're naive. I go, well, anytime you've ever had victory, it's always been because love has not failed us. It's just we don't want to wait. We want to shake our fists sometimes and create an us and a them. I'm going to bet on the mighty kindness to transform mass incarceration, to transform the ripping of children from their parents and deporting people. I'm going to place all my confidence in our ability as people to be in the world who God is. And will that ultimately transform institutions? If we're paying attention, it has, and it will. I don't want to overstay our welcome, so thank you all very much. Thank you. I love you so much.
We have 7 minutes left. Please be seated. So,
I was never told what our end time was. This is like that mass I was here that lasted for 4 days. I remember it like it was yesterday.
that was a jujitsu mass. So, solitary confinement. We know the words. I can't even imagine it. Being shot by a cousin. Hear the words. Not just the physical blow, like what? You guys tell your stories. He listens. He tells his. Others tell theirs. Something happens in that. So here's my thing. I hear everything that you said tonight as foundational. I don't know how you do it. Gee, you lay it out there. You don't seem to step over a line. You don't get political in the partisan sense. You don't call things out. You don't get flustered and worked up, at least in your presentation tonight. You guys telling your stories. I'm amateur hour, I feel, like on Sundays when I get out here, because I get worked up about stuff. And I remember this winter, I was listening to Cherish Belonging, and there was a snowstorm. Spencer, I don't know if you've ever seen snow down there in Compton, but we had a snowy winter up north. And by the way, when I was meeting Rafa and Spencer downstairs, I'm talking, and Spencer goes, yo, what are you from, Australia?
That's a keeper.
I said, no, Boston. He goes, all right. It was classic. Anyway, back to Maine. I was shoveling up in Maine, and I'm listening to you in Cherish Belonging. Now, there's nobody around for acres. Nobody's around. And I'm out there. And as you were speaking about know us and them, and the demonizing and all this kind of stuff, I heard myself audibly, out loud, saying, no, G, that's too much, it's too far. Me, the guy that's always out here, amateur hour, forgiveness, all these different things. But I was listening to you through the lens of all that's going on in the country today. And you still so deftly navigate these issues on a foundational level. And I stay up here flailing, saying stuff, going too far, not far enough, not articulate. And I have demonized them, the demonizers, if you will. And I'm stuck in that. And I don't know if I'm speaking for anybody in the house tonight as we navigate these divided times. Just as a closing thought, as you send us forward and out tonight and into the week and into our lives, how do we work with this, I don't know, boomerang effect? And then continue to go forward, speaking the truth, but not getting caught up in the fray. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah. You know, you do what you can do. Like, I'll just give an example. So in Los Angeles, we have so many terrified parents who don't leave the house because of ICE raids there at the moment. And a lot of their children work at Homeboy Industries. So we've done this thing now, once a month, maybe it'll be more often, called Hope Alley. And it's on Bruno Street, which is the street that is on the side of Homeboy. And it's cobblestone. It's kind of historic, actually. And so we have 20 puestos, you know, places like tamales and flowers and fruit and tacos and ice cream. And all the parents who are undocumented and terrified, we sell their stuff for them. And the first time we did it, we had 1,000 people who were all wanting to be a part of a mighty kindness that says no to the separation and ripping apart of families, no to people who are terrified and staying in their homes because they're too frightened to be street vendors at the moment. So it was a small thing, but it had a kind of mighty kind of reverberation, you know? So it's like you do what you can do, and it fortifies us. It strengthens everybody. People go, yeah, we can stand against what's happening. Here's how we will do it. Here's one way. And then, you know, we had folks from a synagogue said, we're going to do this too in our parking lot. And all of a sudden, it's a small thing. It's very helpful for the vendors, because one woman said, I made more money in 4 hours than I normally do in a week, because there's all this support. People want to say, we're with you. We won't abandon you. We won't forget that you're going through this. So tiny in the scope of things, really, but it's one loving foot put in front of the next. I don't know what else we do except to do that. And my sense in the country is that we're doing it, that people are doing this, you know, and our stance, and this community's stance, proposes a challenge to an ICE agent. Follow your conscience. Don't rip families apart. You can do that. And I think it's how we make that statement in a way without making villains of anybody. So I keep trying to end this, but but as Al Pacino says, but he pulls me back in.
Well, we can't thank you enough. Rafa, Spencer, Father G, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Nicole just reminded me downstairs we have beautiful, delicious cupcakes and cookies and merchandise supporting Homeboy. So please feel free to cruise on through. And thank you so much for being here this evening. Grateful. Thank you.